Hey everybody, my name is Megan Pruitt-Kuhn, and I've been thinking for a while of starting a vlog or a YouTube channel, somewhere where I can talk about books and writing and other things that I love. And I've decided to call it Time for Tea. One of the things I really love is tea, and so I brought my teacup and my saucer, and I'm hoping that as we go on this literary creative journey together that you'll show up with your cup of tea, whatever kind of tea you like. We'll talk about that another time, and join me in reading and writing and anything else we want to discuss. So I want to start by telling you a little bit about myself. So I was an English teacher for 15 years. I taught mostly high school, a little bit of middle school, but that is not where my gifts lie. So mostly high school. And I loved that job. I love books, I love writing, and I love more than anything sharing my love of those things with others. I love exploring different worlds, and I love working with young people and the great privilege of being with them as they make their way. So I taught for 15 years, and oh, hi Jessica Peck, I love you. And I think there's another person, but I don't really know how to do this. So, oh, it's my gosh, it's my high school English teacher, Mr. Suits. Hi, Mr. Suits. So I taught for 15 years, and it was a job that I really loved. And then some circumstances changed for me, and I had to leave that profession behind. And that was incredibly heartbreaking for me. And so I'm looking for a way to get back to teaching and exploring texts and exploring writing and interacting with people again. So I hope that this series will inspire you to read some things that you haven't read before. I'm hoping that it will inspire you to look at literature differently as we explore some texts, poetry, plays, books. I'm open for all of it. I hope that we'll be able to write some together too, or at least you'll learn some things about how we write and why we write. And then we're also just going to talk about life. So the series is going to be called, if you missed the beginning, Time for Tea. And I'm encouraging everyone to bring their tea and their teacup and saucer to these video sessions, whatever you want to call them. So today I thought what I might do is, well, there are two reasons. This will be a short one today because I'm still trying to figure out what book we should start with and what works. So if you have suggestions, let me know. But because it is National Poetry Month in April, and because today is Earth Day, I thought that I would share a couple of poems by my very favorite poet, Mary Oliver. I encountered Mary Oliver quite by accident. I was teaching AP Literature, and one of the prompts on the AP Literature exam was to analyze a Mary Oliver poem, and it was, oh, I just loved it. It's called Crossing the Swamp. It's from her anthology titled American Primitive, and it is just stunning. I have loaned my copy of American Primitive to one of my friends currently, so I can't read you that one today, but you should go look it up. But when I was going through a really difficult time in my life, I picked up another book by Mary Oliver titled Thirst, and I was through just a collection after collection by Mary Oliver. And I got to this one, and this book really fed me. It was so perfect in a time when I was struggling. And in this time when we are struggling through something together, I really believe that this book can bring a lot of healing for people. So I highly recommend it. So I'm going to read you a couple poems from Thirst by Mary Oliver. The first one is titled, can you see? I feel like LeVar Burton on Reading Rainbow, which is like life goals. So the first one's titled, When I Am Among the Trees. When I am among the trees, especially the willows and the honey locust, equally the beech, the oaks and the pines, they give off such hints of gladness. I would almost say that they save me, and daily. I am so distant from the hope of myself, in which I have goodness and discernment, and never hurry through the world, but walk slowly, then bow often. Around me the trees stir in their leaves and call out, "Stay a while." The light flows from their branches. And they call again. "It's simple," they say, "and you too have come into the world to do this, to go easy, to be filled with light, and to shine." I'm going to read the last part again because I just really love it. So the trees say to her, "It's simple, and you too have come into the world to do this, to go easy, to be filled with light, and to shine." That's so pretty. These are words I think we need to hear right now in this time when we're being sort of forced into simplicity and slowing down and stillness, which so many of us, I mean, I'm a goer. I go all the time. Anyone who's ever had me as their teacher knows I talk 100 miles an hour and I just zoom through. And now we're having to be still and quiet and reflective, and that can be kind of scary. But this poem reminds us that that's why we're brought into the world, is to do this, to live, to sit, to be still, to go easy, to be filled with light, and to shine. And there's a lot of opportunity right now to shine in the world. So I love that poem because I think there's such a beautiful simplicity about it. Also just the way in which it's written with the block stanzas. And she uses a lot of variation in her poetry in terms of structure. So her structure really has meaning for the poem. It's reflecting something about the poem. And in this case, these stanzas and how there's just slight variations in them, but there's something very regular about them. It really reflects that idea of being still and staying a while and just listening, and also that concept of simplicity. So another poem of hers that I was hoping to share with you, if you want to stick around for another one, let me find it in here, is written in a different form. So that's why I wanted to share it with you so that you could see the difference or in how form matters in poems, right? So we read that one, which has a pretty traditional form, just some block stanzas. And let's see, I'm going to read for you. Can she find it? Yes, she can. Here it is. It's called "The Place I Want to Get Back To" by Mary Oliver. The place I want to get back to is where in the pine woods, in the moments between the darkness and first light, 2 deer came walking down the hill. And when they saw me, they said to each other, "Okay, this one is okay. Let's see who she is and why she's sitting on the ground like that, so quiet, as if asleep or in a dream, but anyway harmless." And so they came on their slender legs and gazed upon me not unlike the way I go out to the dunes and look and look and look into the faces of flowers. And then one of them leaned forward and nuzzled my hand, and what can my life bring to me that could exceed that brief moment? For 20 years, I have gone every day to the same woods, not waiting exactly, just lingering. Such gifts bestowed can't be repeated. If you want to talk about this, come to visit. I live in the house near the corner, which I have named Gratitude. So you can see from these two poems that, or here perhaps, that Mary Oliver writes a lot about nature, which is why I thought it was appropriate for Earth Day. But she writes a lot about reflection and stillness and being, but also being with people and being grateful for the things we have. If you look at this poem, you'll see that it's structured quite differently than the first poem that I read. Instead of regular stanzas, you've got this sort of, it's like a graduated lines. And so she uses that more so in this one because there is a bit of a journey in it about wanting to go back to the pine woods, to a place, to get somewhere. And so that's just an example of how form can really matter to a poem. Sometimes I think that we look at poems and we think that the poet just wrote that willy-nilly and just put it in 4-line stanzas because that's easiest, or, well, I don't know why she made it look like that. Maybe she was just feeling crazy that day. And, maybe there's certainly some truth to that, but just maybe it was a decision. I read somewhere once that, or maybe it was a professor who said to me once, that poets, something that we underappreciate about poets is that they have all the words to choose from. And so if they choose to repeat one, right, a poet is a master of words. If they choose to repeat a word, then there's significance in that. I used to tell my students that poets are artists, and an artist chooses the size of his brush, he chooses the style, he chooses the color from the palette. Why do we think that writers do it any differently? Why do we think writers are somehow willy-nilly? No, they choose as well. They choose the structure, they choose the medium, they choose the tools, they choose the colors. It's all the same. So for this first video, and if you're just joining us, I am starting a video series I'm calling Time for Tea, encouraging everyone to bring their teacups and saucers and sit, and we can talk about books and poems and plays, and we'll talk about writing as well. And then we'll just talk about what's going on and life too. I think that there's a lot we can learn from each other, and I miss being in my classroom, so I've decided that my house can be the classroom. And if you'd like to learn a little bit more about how to read, like how to really read, like actively, or you just want to hear me talk about books and you just want to come and sit and drink tea and not listen to a word I'm saying, just enjoy some time, I'd love to have you on this particular series. So I'm trying to figure out how often I'll do this, and also trying to figure out what book I should really dive into first as part of this. Or if perhaps in April I'll stick with some poems because it's National Poetry Month. And I think that a lot of us leave poetry after we're out of high school, and that's really too bad. My experience teaching high school is that a lot of high schoolers find poetry to be like the grandest nightmare, like it's some kind of puzzle that they're not going to understand. And that's really too bad because poetry there's so much beauty in it and so much rawness and honesty, and we're just missing out on a whole lot if we don't stick with poetry and read more poetry. So I'll probably do a couple more poetry ones. I see some comments and they're making me really happy. Amar, you are one of the greatest people ever. So thank you. I appreciate that. And Maggie, would love to do my audiobook. I will tell you all that my publisher has requested a sequel for Sweet Divinity, so that's exciting news. So I'm going to be starting work on that. I'm also working on another novel, tentatively titled Reliance, that is much darker and darker in theme and just darker overall. It's literary fiction, so I was working on that, but I'm going to start working on my Sweet Divinity sequel soon since it's in demand. So thank you to everybody who's been supporting that, because it's working, and it's always exciting when your publisher says, hey, are you going to write a sequel to that book? Oh, thank you, Jessica. So I'm super excited about that. It's really good news. So I'm going to leave you with the last thing I'll do when I'm signing off is I'm going to read, if you'll indulge me, one more Mary Oliver poem. I really love her, and I really love her personal story is beautiful as well. And the way that she writes is so authentic and really shows the connection that we have with nature and with this beautiful earth, that we're so fortunate and blessed to call our home. And she passed away just last year, actually. Thank you, Denise. I appreciate that. She passed away just last year, and it was a very sad day for me because I realized that that's all we have of Mary Oliver's poetry. All we have is in the world. But if you liked the poems that I was reading, if you like the last one that I'll read, she has a book called Devotion, and it's really a collection of her poems. So you can go through that. American Primitive is the one that won her, I believe, the Pulitzer Prize. But like I said at the very beginning, the book Thirst is the one that I always turn to when I'm in a difficult time. And so that's why I chose to read from that for you today. So one last poem by Mary Oliver. Thank you so much for showing up for my first Facebook Live. I'm going to try to put together a YouTube channel as well. And I'm really interested in what you'd like to do with this conversation. Are there books or works that you would like for me to read and explain and dive deeply into that maybe you were supposed to read in high school and you didn't read, like The Great Gatsby, or some book that's very popular and you want to read it, but you'd like to have a sort of a literary lens going with it? I would love that. Or if there's a topic about writing that you want to hear about, just let me know, and I will absolutely take your suggestions. There will definitely be some J.K. Rowling going on at some point because that's already been requested. And I'll also talk about Sweet Divinity and how I went about writing that too. I have a blog. I'm behind on it because I've been teaching 2 courses at Furman University, and since we went all online, I have been spending all of my time putting those courses together. My husband has just joined. Hello, Ryan Kuhn. So I have not been as good on my blog lately, but I'm going to get back to that as well. Anyway, so what suggestions do you have? Bring them on, and you can look for my posts. I'll let you know when I'm going to do the next one, and so you can make your cup of tea and come and join us. So I'm going to close with one last poem by Mary Oliver. Thank you for coming to my first episode of Time for Tea. This poem is called, Doesn't Every Poet Write a Poem About Unrequited Love? The flowers I wanted to bring to you, wild and wet from the pale dunes, and still smelling of the summer night, and still holding a moment or two of the night cricket's humble prayer, would have been so handsome in your hands, so happy, I dare say it, in your hands, yet your smile would have been nowhere. And maybe you would have tossed them onto the ground, or maybe, for tenderness, you would have taken them into your house and given them water and put them in a dark corner out of reach. In matters of love of this kind, there are things we long to do but must not do. I would not want to see your smile diminished, and the flowers, anyway, are happy just where they are. On the pale dunes, above the cricket's humble nest, under the blue sky that loves us all. So I would just say that last bit is really what I would like for you to take away today. That we are all under the blue sky that loves us all. So happy Earth Day, happy National Poetry Month. Thank you so much for tuning in, and let me know what we can do together. I'm excited to learn with you and to read with you. So thanks a lot. And now I'll figure out how to turn off Facebook Live because it's the first time I've ever done that. So thanks, everybody. Lots of love to all of you. I am keeping you all in my thoughts and prayers and sending lots of positivity and love out into the world. Hope you do the same. Bye.